All right. Hi, Nick.
Hi, how are you doing?
Well, you know that I'm taking on way too much right now. It sounds like you're taking on a little less these days, which is really, really nice. I want to get to where you are. Um, so how long did it take you to get to this place where you're like, I'm I'm not going to take on everything right now? Because I've heard your speeches in the past where you talk about how you're addicted to anxiety, and then maybe
Yep.
that is the reason you take things on, and I totally resonate with that. So how
Yeah.
did you get away from that?
I'll tell the very quick story on that one. My psychologist about 4 years ago said to me, "Do you know that you are addicted to anxiety?" And I was like, "What does that even mean?" And he explained to me the physiology of anxiety. That when you're anxious, your dopamine and endorphins peak, your adrenaline kicks in, and you focus a lot more, kind of like you're on a drug. And then you get addicted to that feeling because you work more efficiently. So what I started to do was manufacture things to be anxious about so that my endorphins and dopamine and adrenaline would pump so that I could work harder. And if that resonates with you, then you have a similar problem. And ultimately, there really is no fix for this other than to understand that you're addicted to this feeling and to step back from it when you recognize it. And part of what I've had to do, and it is a constant battle, is cut back. And I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16, and I can define the first 2 decades of my career basically by my inability to say no to things. Every time I've struggled, every time I've suffered, every time I haven't been able to perform at my absolute best. And I think that's the key phrase here, is because I've taken on too much and said yes to too many things because I'm nervous of letting opportunities go. And ultimately, since we're talking to authors, what makes a good piece of writing, in my view, is dedication to making it excellent. I think if you're setting out to write a book, you can probably be good enough, but there are 3,000 books that are published every day. And there are lots of good enough writers out there. There's lots of good enough content. There's lots of good enough authors and businesses. But are you trying to be good enough? And for me, it was I'm taking on too many things, and therefore I'm only good enough. And so when you say when do I think other people will get to that level? Today, like right now, you get to make the choice to do fewer things better. And actually, a friend of mine, Howard Mann, has written a book called Fewer Better on this exact topic,
Mm.
that it's more likely that you will excel when you do fewer things and focus up. And another guy I like to follow is Derek Sivers, and he's got a hell yes or no rule, that if you don't want to do something with a hell yes, you should probably say no. If it's a maybe or a this could be cool or oh, there might be opportunity here, you're better off saying no.
Yeah, that's relationship advice I should have taken when I was 20 years old. Yeah. But
Absolutely true. That
yeah,
applies to relationships.
there's just so many things I think we do where we're kind of ambivalent, and it's like this is either too good to not do, but
Yep.
too bad to keep doing. And I think there's so many entrepreneurs who are just depressed because
Yeah.
we're kind of bouncing between, the anxiety addiction where you do everything. Like time management is not a problem, but
Yep.
then you bounce back and forth, and then time management becomes a problem because you burn out and it's overwhelming and you just don't want to do any of it. So
Yep.
yeah, that you're just triggering me right now.
It is also a vicious cycle that once you do too many things, you find yourself frustrated that you're doing nothing well, and you can't figure out why, even though there are 50 things in front of you that you can't get to. And it's actually a trigger of burnout, is that you never complete anything and you never feel fulfillment towards the things that
Mm.
you complete because you're constantly just starting new things that aren't excellent. And your fulfillment is a big, people think that burnout has to do with sleep and exercise, but more than anything else, it has to do with how much you feel fulfilled by the work that you do. And if you feel subpar all the time, you don't feel
Yeah.
fulfilled by your work.
Oh, God. What would you say to authors who like their goal is to build your big backlist? Like if you have 50 books, then they'll sell themselves. You just need people to enter your funnel by reading one book and then buy your next 50 low ticket things.
I think it all depends on what kind of author you want to be, what kind of ideas you want to put out into the world. If writing is a side hustle and fun thing for you, or if it is the way you're trying to build a business. I'm a coach on a speaker's course. I've been a professional speaker for 15 years. And one of the things we like to tell speakers is, are you trying to make money for your talk, or from your talk? And the same thing
Mhm.
applies to your books. Are you trying to make money from your book, or for your book? And if you're trying to make money from your book, then absolutely the lead funnels make sense. Pump out one book every 12 months, make sure that you've got a backlog, push people into your online course, distribute them around. Amazing.
Mhm.
That works mostly for people like Mark Manson, who has got 10 million copies sold and he's got this built-in funnel and he pushes them through. It's exceptionally hard for unknown authors because the book is just your lead magnet that works once, that you still have to do ads for. You still have to build an audience on socials and blah, blah, blah. If you, however, are trying to get paid for your book, then you're better off writing the best piece of content you think you can put out there. It's not about volume, it's about excellence. So you have to kind of
Mhm.
figure out where you want to position yourself. What I tend to do is have a million ideas for my books, put them in what I call an ideas trap. It's a place where I put my ideas so I don't forget them, and then they don't bother my brain, and then just stick to working on what I'm working on right now.
Yeah. Sounds like the Neil Gaiman approach, where you have a to-do list of good art you want to create and then just cross one out at a time.
Exactly. Also, Neil Gaiman is one of him and Ed Sheeran. I unbelievably are connected here. They both separately have said the same thing about creating excellent work, that your job is to get the shit out of your brain, because there is one pipe out of your brain and it is clogged up with your bad ideas. So people who are worried about perfection, you need to be prolific, not perfect. Ed Sheeran and Neil Gaiman say that you need to be prolific. Get all
Mm.
your ideas out of that pipe so that you can clear the way for that one good idea. But your first idea is not your good one. So just
Yeah.
keep writing, get those ideas out and publish so that you come to this amazing piece of magic that is in your brain.
Yeah. I think that when it comes to garbage, I think we have to kind of accept that most of our ideas are garbage and we're not
Yeah.
always brilliant, but I love to do stream of consciousness writing,
Mm.
like the artist way, where you just write all the garbage and then maybe there's one line in there that is accidental genius, right? Um,
Absolutely agree with that.
and you used to be a super rock star guy, right? In South Africa. That
You mean
was
I was in a band one
you're
time?
in the band, but
Yeah.
you were going somewhere.
We were. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16, and one of my businesses was a band. I taught myself to play the guitar when I was 13, and then went to study journalism at the preeminent university in South Africa for that, called Rhodes University, and connected with a few people and started a band. And we just kind of practiced all the time and got kind of good, and then started touring the country. And then we're about to sign a record label to a record label in South Africa, and our lead singer, who was from a really poverty-stricken small town in South Africa, he decided to take a job at Unilever. Which was completely sensible, made
Yeah.
all the logical sense in the world, because in South Africa, it's not a big country. I'm in London now, but it's a country of 50 million people. It's 30%, 35% unemployment. So if you can get a job that's really good, you should probably take it. So in hindsight, 38-year-old Nic is like, smart man, lead singer, gave us all opportunities, because we probably would have toiled away at this thing for 10 years and made no money.
Okay. Well, was that your first kind of experience with failure in business?
No, my first business at
No.
the age of 16 was a failure. It was a competition that I entered in school to start a business, make the most money in one semester. And I didn't win that, but the bug completely caught me as an entrepreneur and set the tone for my understanding of failure. And it's kind of how I approach writing too. Failure is not an end point, it's a through point. And if you
Mm.
see failure as an end point, then it is the only thing you'll ever do is fail. For me,
Mm.
failure is something to get through, to look at, to marvel at, to enjoy and wonder. I've never found a successful author or business person who has avoided failure towards success. Like, it's just not a thing. You cannot avoid failure. It is intrinsic. It's deeply embedded in everything we do. And you have to look at authors like Isaac Asimov, who in his career published literally hundreds and hundreds of books. and you probably only know 5 of them. Same with Seth Godin. He's published over 50 books, I think 60, maybe even in the hundreds. You only know 3 or 4 of them. He's prolific, and with
Yeah.
prolific comes failure.
Yeah. And I know you kind of have this no bullshit approach to, teaching entrepreneurs that most of us do fail. Like,
Yeah.
most of us are that statistic where we're going to fail. And yet you back new businesses with literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. So is that because you're hopeful that these people, like, you want them to fail and just keep failing fast?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fail fast, fail often mantra is maybe overused as a badge of honor. It's not a badge of honor to blow
I've
people's
failed
money and
so
be
many times.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's not the kind of failure I'm after. I'm after logical, experiential failure, where you are going out to test something. You are going to write an article, and this is basically how Mark Manson wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Was he wrote a blog post. That blog post went unbelievably viral. And then he was like, I'm onto something.
Mm-hmm.
If you go and listen to Julian Shapiro's podcast, the way that him and a bunch of writers pitch their next books is they lay the chapters out, and then they publish blog posts of each chapter, and they see which chapter does the most in terms of viral content, and then they double down on that content and break out another 5 chapters from that, and they evolve. How that ties into failure is everything that doesn't hit is a failure. It doesn't mean they don't do the work. They do the work, and then whatever doesn't work, they let go, and they only focus on what did work. And that's iterative failure. That's how we
Yeah.
should all be doing all of this. The internet is ripe for this for authors.
So I feel like there's a problem here because we want to make excellent products and services, which takes time. But then we also want to test. And with testing, we could do a million different things. So where's the happy medium where you have things that are not just good enough, they're excellent, but you also make room to, you assume they're excellent, but still might suck and have to do a bunch of iterations on it.
Yeah, I think
How do we
the
find the time,
person.
Nick?
It's a great question. I think the person I'm going to defer to here is Seth Godin, and one of his last books is The Practice. And the phrase that sums up that book, the joke, Seth Godin likes to say, read until you get the joke. The joke on that book, the punchline is, the practice is the work. So, what a lot of authors do is they're fearful of practicing in public, which means you don't publish all the time, which means you don't get feedback. And the internet is the perfect place to get constant feedback on your work. So, if you can lower your ego, not be afraid to publish in public, and then iterate often. So that's the feedback loop. You're never going to write something great in the first piece of article that you write, but the third or fourth or fifth iteration of that might turn into something great. Another great version of this is Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian, and I'm finishing his latest book, Project Hail Mary. He wrote The Martian over a long period, and fan fiction came into it, and he published blog posts and articles and got feedback on characters from his audience, and he slowly built up this community of people who loved what he said and how he wrote and the characters, but helped him evolve them through constant comments and feedback on his blog post. You don't have to have something perfect. You have to be prolific. Seth Godin is prolific. He has been writing on his blog every single day for almost 2 decades. That's how he ranks number 1 if you search for the word Seth. That is staggering. He doesn't even have a business card. He just says, Google me, my name is Seth. That is how you become prolific, right? And not every blog post of his goes viral. My favorite thing to challenge people on is that when people say that they're perfectionists, that's absolutely rubbish. You're not a perfectionist. You are making excuses to not publish. That's what you're doing. So if you've ever said you're a perfectionist, maybe look internally and think about why you don't want to put that work out there. Maybe it's not at the level you think it should be, or maybe you're too nervous of what people are going to judge you on, and screw people. They don't know what
Yeah.
you're doing. Just ignore them.
I didn't know that about Andy Weir. I just kind of heard that he's like the poster boy of self-publishing, where he self-published and now he has a movie. I didn't know that he's been iterating on that book.
He's got a fantastic TED talk about this. It's well worth the watch for
Okay.
any author out there. He's actually a developer, a programmer, a software engineer by trade.
Cool.
He is not a full-time writer. He wrote The Martian as a side hustle until the whole thing was basically published before he had a book deal. Like, that's astounding. Most of us are against that. Oh no, I'm only going to have a manuscript and then get it to an author, a publisher, in case someone steals my idea. Your idea is not special enough. You need to build an audience. You need to build a
Yeah.
community. And once you've got 10,000 people who love your work, the publisher is going to come and find you and they'll give you a deal.
Yeah. And I know you talk about building your side hustle. So is that kind of one of the tricks, to just not starve and go all into your art until you've proven yourself? Because I know quite a few authors, we do go all in. We save some money and then just hope we figure it out as we go along. What do you think
It's
of
a
that
difficult.
versus?
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult one, and I think it's different for everybody. I used to be quite dogmatic and prescriptive about, focus. There's only one way to do things, but now, if you have a wealthy dad and he's able to pay you until you write this great book, great, good on
Yeah.
you. Don't do it as a side hustle. Do this thing full time. Don't be shy of that. Embrace it. But if you have a full time job, 3 children, and all you can do is write 1 hour on the weekend, that's
Yeah.
great too. But commit to that 1 hour. That's what I tell
Mhm.
people when I coach them about their businesses and side hustles, is just set a committed time and do that. Who cares if it takes you 5 years to write your epic novel that gets published? That's what it takes to write a novel. And I can vouch for this. My first book took me 6 weeks to write, and it sold less than 3,000 copies. My second book took me 4 months to write, and it sold 6,000 copies. My next book took me another 2 years to write, and it sold more copies. So every book I've written has done significantly better because you're crafting your art, and that's what
Mhm.
it takes.
Yeah. And you have a new business. First of all, how many businesses do you have?
As of last week, significantly fewer, because we were
Okay.
discussing off air that I've shut a few down. But right now, the one that we're about to talk about is actually the only business that I run. But on the side, what I actually do is I'm an entrepreneur coach and a keynote speaker. So Booksum, which we're going to talk about now, booksum.co, is actually the only business I have. And that is BOOKSUM, booksum.co. And the idea is really simple. I published my third book at the beginning of this year. And it went on to be a bestseller in South Africa. But the idea of marketing my book, once I had written the manuscript, read it 3 times, had the editor send me back notes, re-edited things, I would rather rip my nails out than actually reread this book one more time to promote it. So I thought, surely there is someone who will read this for me, make notes on what the best ideas are, take those notes and put them into social media posts and share them. And that's what Booksum does. I've got writers who will read your book and they will extract the best ideas from your book and craft them into social media posts, either for Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, and then send you a file of all these posts ready for you to publish to grow your audience slowly and carefully. And the link is down there. There it is. And I think we are doing a giveaway. I don't know if you want to do that now or at some other point, but it's up to you.
Oh,
It's
that
now
problem
good.
with live is I mute myself
Yeah.
and then I forget. Now is perfect. Let's go for
Okay,
it.
great. Yeah. So, to anybody who's on this and the rest of your database, we are giving away one of the packages, which is to get 50 ideas from your book crafted by a writer of mine, sent to you, and that's valued at $249. And all you need to do is send us a manuscript of your book in an editable format, and we will send you back in a couple of weeks 50 social media posts for you to share that are relevant to your book.
50 ideas. It would be so interesting to see what someone else, what a pro thinks are the best lines in your book, and just grab basically quotes.
Exactly.
Fill up your Goodreads quotes section. That'd be great. I love
That's
that.
exactly it. That's exactly it. And I mean, it's such a simple thing. And everybody says to me, oh, but surely authors would want to write their own social media posts. No, not after I've just spent 6 weeks rereading my manuscript for the 7th time. I'd rather die than do that. So that's where we come in.
And it's so affordable for something you could spread out all year long.
Exactly. I mean,
And
if you look at
repurpose.
it, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's about the repurposing. So if you look
Yeah.
at the top tier is $399 for 100 ideas. 100 ideas, if you post 2 a week, you've covered the whole year. Like you've got a year's worth of social media content done from one book in the space of 2 weeks. So it is definitely something I tried to make affordable, valuable, and useful.
Well, thank you so much for offering that. I love how much you give away. I don't know if you do this knowing that you're going to get it back karmically or if you're just a good guy. But either way,
I,
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I think deep down, I hope that there is karma because I like to just help people out. We've all struggled through so much, and I've been doing this for long enough that why not?
Okay, well, one more question before I let you go. If you could give us one more piece of advice for getting out of our own way and promoting our books and succeeding at this, what would it be?
So it's my favorite piece of advice that upsets most people, but I say it for that very reason. Most of us are nervous to publish things, to speak our minds, to promote our books in case somebody judges us, in case somebody doesn't like it, in case somebody says something negative. But here's the truth. If you don't publish what you want to publish, promote what you want to promote, nobody knows who you are. Nobody is thinking about you, not your family, not your friends, not your closest confidants. Day to day, you don't enter their mind. If you don't post on social media, nobody wonders where you are. And I know that for a fact because when I don't post on LinkedIn or Instagram, nobody phones me and says, "Hey, Nick, are you okay? You haven't posted in a few days." That's not a thing. So the only way to get known is to be known, is to go out and publish, is to do the things that get people to read your work. That is the only thing as authors we need to do, is have people read our work. So write and publish all the time because nobody is thinking about you unless you do that. Nobody is waiting for you to publish your manuscript and your masterpiece because they don't know you exist until you put yourself in front of them.
Okay, harsh truths from Nick. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the giveaway.
Amazing. Thank you for having me.